Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Citygate Church and to our marriage course. We're so excited to have you. Sean and I have done this course a few times before, but it's normally in our lounge. Welcome to our lounge, to our couch. But normally we have the couples in the couch, well, not in the couch, in the lounge with us. So obviously this is new and different, but we are excited to be able to take this opportunity whilst being on lockdown to invest in each other and invest in our marriages. We can't get away from each other right now. So either the lockdown is bringing out the best or the worst in our marriages at this moment, spending 24/7 in each other's presence. So, yeah, this evening we are just going to share a little bit about us and then also just share some bits of information that we have collected over the last few years, things from different courses that we've done, books that we've read, yeah, all kinds of things that we've done and put together and things that really have impacted us personally as a couple. So, a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about over the next few weeks is actually not ours, and we are very good at saying where it came from. So, we won't pretend it was us. We're just an ordinary couple. We're not gurus. We're not psychologists. We've got no fancy ideas of how to do things, but we have found or stumbled across a few tools that have really helped us, and we are excited to share that with you tonight. So, I'm going to hand over to Sean.
So I think one of the most important things about marriage courses, obviously my profession is pastor, so I do get to see a lot of people and marriages and have these kind of conversations on a regular basis. But one thing I've realized over the years, Linz and I have been married for 16 years now, got 3 kids, and there's no course to cure a marriage. So often, people think, hey, if I go to this course, if I just do that, or if I just do this, it's going to sort out my marriage. Really, what cures a marriage or helps a marriage is really a person looking inside themselves and saying, hey, I want to change. I want to be a person who wants to make this marriage better. And you can liken that to anything in life, whether it's your workplace or whatever it is. If you want to be good at something, you've got to pay attention to it. And the mere fact that you guys are joining us today, you are saying, I would assume in your heart that you want to look at your marriage, or it's just something to do for these 21 days of lockdown. I was chatting to Jason Stain, and he said, no, it's not a 5-part marriage course, it's a 21-day marriage course. So we're getting into the 21-day marriage course. So, yeah, a little bit more about us. You want to carry on myself? Okay. So we met. Well, let me maybe make it into a little bit of a story. I like storytelling. It was a hot evening in 1998. I looked down the hall. I was in a church building, and this lone girl walked in. She was the rose among all the 40 boys at Durban High School. It was her and my sister. There were the only 2 girls in the youth at that particular time. And I was like, oh my word. Here's a real gorgeous woman and girl. Yeah, at that time. Yeah, she was 16. That is true. And yeah, just for me, it was an instant moment where I was like, geez, I really, really think this girl is amazing. The one thing about her is she was very different to me, and I think that was a large part of the attraction, was that she was so completely different to me. Very soon after that, we started hating each other on a big level, to the point where at night, and this is the craziness, I would lie on my bed at night and pray, God, please, I'll marry anyone but this girl. Please, whoever it is out there, I don't mind, but just not Lindsay. And we sort of went through 2 years of like a love-hate relationship. And yeah, 2000, which was our matric year, just before finals, I tricked Lindsay into telling her that she still liked me. And yeah, it sort of went from there. I think our marriage has had its ups and downs, like every single other marriage. And I think Lindsay was saying that earlier. We aren't gurus. Every marriage I know of has times where it's really hard and times where it's really easy and fun and enjoyable. But the key is in those hard times is to really learn some stuff and go from there. So what's your sort of perspective about how we met?
Yes, that's pretty much how it went down, except that I also prayed that I wouldn't marry Sean. So somehow we managed to land up together. So just a bit of a disclaimer before we go into what we're going to talk about tonight is this is a biblical based marriage discussion that we're going to have. Sean and I will talk together on the couch and talk to you, and it's very relaxed. We're just going to share some things with you. And part of what we're going to talk about tonight, and please excuse us, we do have notes because our memories are a bit shot after being 24/7 cooped up with 3 children, which, by the way, it is lockdown, so there is no babysitter. So if any child comes wandering through, please have mercy on us. They have been given strict instructions not to. So yeah, tonight we're going to share to you or talk to you about the purpose of marriage. And this was based off of a book by a pastor slash theologian in America called John Mark Comer. He's an amazing young guy. He is passionate. We really enjoyed listening to him and reading his books. And it was quite an interesting experience how we landed up delving into his book called Loveology. And what happened was Sean had downloaded his book on Audible. I'm actually not sure how he found out about it, but he downloaded his book and he started to listen to it when I wasn't around, and he never told me about it. And I started to notice something drastically had changed in my husband. And I took some time eventually one day to say, what is going on? Because this is not you, and something is different about the way you're interacting with me at the moment. And I was like, not that it's bad, it's really good. Keep going, keep going. And that's when Sean said to me, well, actually, I've been listening to this book, and it's called Loveology by John Mark Comer. And I said, great, send it to me because I want to have it, because whatever you are doing is really working for me, and maybe I can start doing a bit of it too. So that's how we got to where we are today. And we're just going to share very briefly some of the points, his amazing points, on what is the purpose or the point of marriage. And this really for us was a foundation to reassess and to get our thinking, which we had off-kilter thinking, to get that off-kilter and onto the real purpose of marriage. So to start, we're just going to go to a scripture which is out of Genesis. We all know this Genesis story about Adam and Eve. Everybody knows. Even people who don't believe in Jesus or the church know about Genesis and Adam and Eve. And in Genesis 2, verse 24, it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. And so that's what we're going to talk about to start with, is that, and my favorite line from that scripture is verse 25, where it says, and the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. And this for us is such an important foundation for a marriage, is to be naked and unashamed before each other. And it has some very interesting dynamics to that. When we talk about being naked and unashamed, we're not talking about necessarily not having your clothes on, which, yes, does happen in marriage, and we'll get there later. But we're talking about it in a what's the word? Figurative, thank you. Figurative form, where we're talking about being naked and unashamed before each other in ourselves and who we are. And so being naked means being vulnerable. It means showing the deep inner parts of us. It means being able to be who we really are on the inside. And often in marriages, this comes with shame. And this was a real turning point for Sean and I, to realize that actually we needed to be in front of each other, naked, completely honest about who we were, naked and completely honest about how we felt about each other, and feel no shame. And so we took some time to work through that, to spend some time working on ourselves, because you can't be naked before someone else until you are able to trust that person and allow them to see the inside of you. So we had to work on ourselves, figure out who we were on the inside, and then be able to start to build that road of trust so that we could start becoming naked and unashamed before each other.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of the keys, is that thing about being vulnerable. I remember our first major time I had a wobbly in our marriage, where I started really questioning, have I made the right decision? Is this the right person for me? Was around about year 7. And the funny part is actually Lindsay was feeling exactly the same thing inside of her, but we just weren't brave enough to have that conversation. And I'll never forget the day we were going for a walk. I think Olivia was born at that stage. We were pushing her in the pram, and we were so frustrated, and we turned around to each other, and I remember saying, like, I don't know if I love you. Was it love you or like you? I can't remember. It was either love or like. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't like you or love you anymore. And Lindsay turned around to me. I was expecting her to be totally heartbroken by the statement that I just like got all the courage inside of me to say. And she turns around, well, I don't like you and love you as well. So I was like, what? But it was such a key moment for us where I, maybe the way we did it could have been better at the time, but it was the first time we were ever open and vulnerable about how we were feeling inside. And that bringing that nakedness out on the table was really the point where I feel our marriage took off. It grew some roots. And yes, we've had other hard times in the past, but that moment was definitely the moment where we decided that we would fight for one another as opposed to fighting against each other.
I think we might have the battle of the marks here tonight. Just one last thing I wanted to add about that is that there's often when we are naked and ashamed, not unashamed like we should be, we build up walls and we block our spouses out. So that the key point is to work on ourselves first. Because if we can work on ourselves, we won't build up that wall and we won't shut out our spouse. We will be brave enough to share and be honest and vulnerable with them. So I think to move on now, we're going to go into 5 areas that John Mark Comer talks about that is the purpose for marriage. 5 things that he has decided, and they are brilliant. So we can't wait to share them with you. So we're going to take turns and hopefully not do too much of the battle of the marks, and just share a bit with you. And if you haven't sent us your email address and you would love some notes, please send us your email address. We'll send you some notes tomorrow, and we'll also send you a link where you can listen to John Mark Comer share more in depth about this topic as well.
So we're going to start off going into Genesis chapter 2, and we're going to start with the first 4 of the 5 because we've got to create a bit of a problem before we go into the 5th one. And Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, it's what Lindsay read earlier. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the key word there is therefore. And this is also before the fall of man. So therefore. So what does it mean by therefore? Obviously, there's something that comes before them. And these are the 4 points that we're going to pull out. So the first one is around marriage, or what's the point of marriage, is friendship. So in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, then the Lord said, it's not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. And what I love about this scripture is, so often you hear people saying, all you need is God. If you want to sort your problem out, all you just need Jesus and he will sort it all out for you. We just need God and he'll sort it out for you. But, which is true in many levels. But here, before the fall, Adam is walking with God in the cool of the day. So every afternoon he's getting to walk with God, have a chat with God, tell him his whole things. And God still turns around and says, it's not good that man is just hanging out with me all the time. He needs someone else. So, and why? Because we as human beings have been created for connection. And during this coronavirus time, it's a great example of why we need connection. Like people are going mental and crazy, being locked up in their homes. Some people extremely lonely and vulnerable at this time. Why? Because God has created us in a way for connection. And one of the most important aspects of a marriage that will keep you going the long haul is to have a really, really good friendship. And I love the comment that Mark John Comer makes in one of the videos, the one that we'll send you, is it says opposites attract and then they react. And so attack. So opposites attract and then they attack. And it's so true. Like when you first meet each other, it's the opposites in the person which makes you really good friends. So because they're so different and they're so interesting, you can create very deep friendships. And then what happens is like lockdown, you get stuck in a place together, or in marriage, some people say like it's a ball and chain, or they use these terrible terminologies about what marriage is. But really what's happening is you get to know each other so well, and then those opposites become the very thing that drive you crazy. So for instance, Lindsay's a very get things done type person. She likes her lists. She writes all her lists and she has plans of what she's going to do, when she's going to do it. Me, I just sort of like waft through life. Everything must be fun. Like what's next? What's most important now? Which totally drives Lindsay crazy. But it's the very thing that attracted her to me. So I wanted to ask some questions, and really this time of lockdown is going to highlight some of these things inside of you, is to ask the question, how are you doing in terms of your friendship with your spouse? Is she your best friend? Can you still just sit on the couch, hang together, and enjoy each other's space? Or is it like, oh, we try to do everything to avoid the space where we are close together again? When last did you do fun things together? Do you still enjoy the company of your spouse? And maybe you even got into marriage not because of a friendship. Maybe there were some other reasons that you got into marriage in the first place. So maybe for you this season is going to be a time we're going to redevelop your friendship. So the first point, so God created us for intimate connection and friendship.
Okay, thank you. So the second reason or purpose for marriage, and it's going to sound very strange, is gardening. And we're not talking about like get in the garden, pull out plants, dig up some things, use a spade. Everybody who knows me will know that I'm not very good at gardening, so I'm not talking about that kind of gardening. But what John Mark Comer refers to as gardening is basically how Adam and Eve were put into the Garden of Eden and they were given the garden to look after and to tend. And so gardening is basically something that you as a couple, a purpose, a vision, a mission that you have together, something that is bigger than just your marriage. He talks about how if your marriage, the purpose of your marriage is just your marriage, it's going to implode. There has to be something further than yourselves for your marriage, for the purpose of your marriage, for you to do together. So he talks about taking a purpose or a mission as a couple and doing that, something bigger than yourselves. And we've seen so many people over this lockdown period and during this time of the coronavirus getting out there, making masks, visiting policemen with sanitizers, and just doing everything we can to help others around us. And those are the kind of things we're talking about. What can you and your spouse do together as a team that is beyond your family and beyond your home? And this is such a important part of marriage because it takes your eyes off of yourself and it takes your scrutiny off of all the weaknesses. Sean doesn't have many. That your spouse has, and it puts your eyes onto something else, and it gives you a focus, and it gives you a mission, and it gives you a purpose, something to do. Just want to check these notes. And often, or you may find that maybe you are married and you are on different pages. You don't seem to have something that you can go for together. And what this does is it creates separateness. And yes, there are things that I do that are for me and things that I've been called to and missions that I have. And Sean has got his separate missions, and one of those is running, and I will not be a runner. I have tried. I tried to get onto the running goodie. I cannot get past the 2 kilometer mark. Sean keeps telling me it's all in my mind. But there will be things that each of you runs for and does on your own. But there needs to be something that you pursue and run for together. There needs to be a purpose that you go after. That thing is going to help to glue you together. For Sean and I was trying to think earlier, okay, so what are some of the things, just as an example, so that you can understand what we are saying. And one of the things is that we feel that we are called to spend time with other couples, helping them in marriages, and to spend time with young people, helping them form identities, to know who they are, and to become the people that they need to be. So that's part of our purpose and our mission as a couple. We also believe and feel that we're great, well, most days, hopefully, we're great at having people in our home and entertaining, and we want to have a home that is open for people to come in and enjoy, and we can share with them and spend time with them. So those are some of the things that we go after together as a couple. We've tried the running, haven't got there yet. Maybe we will get there. Maybe I should bring Sean over to my side and he should start doing sit-ups and those things he told me yesterday he doesn't do.
Yeah, what I love about this, so one of the big traps that we often get into, and one of them is I'm on my mission, and this is what I'm going to be doing, and no matter what happens, I'm doing my mission. Yes. So whether my spouse wants to or not, I'm going on my own mission. And the other spouse, same thing. I've got my mission, my plans. I've also got dreams. I'm going to go and do my mission and dreams. And what ends up happening is we start building away from one another. And over time, that distance just gets further and further and further away. And what we've seen often is as these guys do that, they start living in different communities and different worlds. And that becomes a really big hurdle to overcome. And one of the things I've really felt for myself is if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do it unless my wife's in on it, unless she's agreed, unless she's a part of it. And I think the most amazing thing she did, I mean, she said she doesn't enjoy running, but what she's often done for comrades and some of my other longer crazy runs is she comes along and she seconds me. So one of the things Lindsay's really good at is organizing stuff, being on time, making sure that the right things get done at the right time. So she is like the absolute perfect seconder for those sort of things. And so she's involved herself in my life. She's involved herself in even my dreams, and vice versa. Where I can, I involve myself in with Lindsay's life as well. So often when Lindsay's, if we're using the exercise example, she does these exercise classes down at, where's that place? The Civic Centre in Westville. And I'll often run around there. The kids will sit down there, but we're spending time together with the same different community. So we're not building apart from one another. So yeah, gardening, what is your life mission? And maybe as a couple, you don't have that yet. You don't have an idea of what that is. And if you've got a piece of paper there, write it down as a question to ask yourselves over the next couple of days. What is it that we are going to do together to make this world a better place?
Awesome. So we've got friendship and we've got gardening, or purpose, a plan. And then the third one, we're all going to love this one, is sexuality. God gave us marriage for sexuality, which is very exciting. We're all very chuffed about. Don't be feeling shy. Sean, don't feel shy talking about this. So welcome to the marriage course. And again, that piece of the Genesis scripture that I love, the verse 25, that says, and the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. This is our ultimate goal in our sexuality as a couple, to not only be naked as in no clothes, but to be able to be completely intimate and one with each other without feeling any shame and without feeling any judgment or pressure or anxiety around it. And God created marriage specifically for this. I love that God created sex. It's beautiful. He decided what it should be like. He made it adventurous. He created it for us for our enjoyment. Yes, to have children and procreate the earth, but also for our enjoyment. And what I love too is that he then gave us the boundary for where that is to be enjoyed. And the boundary is that it is for enjoyment in marriage. And within that space, we can enjoy the vastness and greatness of it and the wildness of it. We can enjoy it to its full. I lost my train of thought now. What was I saying? Oh, yes, there we go. So it's to be joyed within the context of marriage. So it's so important for us to keep our marriage a safe place. Yeah. And in order to keep it a safe place, we have to be able to trust each other, and we have to be able to keep our eyes on our spouses only. The other thing about intimacy and sex is that it actually is more than just a physical exercise, but it is the glue that holds us together. It's this beautiful thing that God has made, this supernatural glue that you cannot see. Every time we come together in the act of intercourse or lovemaking, we are rebonded together. We are stuck back together. Yeah. You'll often find if you go a while, a month, a week, 2 weeks, a few years without being sexually intimate, you get a bit itchy, scratchy with each other. There's less grace for each other. It's difficult to work through issues. God has made it that way. He's made it that we reaffirm our unity. We re-glue ourselves together, for want of better words, every time that we are intimate with each other. I hope everybody's children are asleep. When we've been married for a while, those butterflies go away and that initial attraction goes away, and then what's left? It becomes difficult. But when we pursue and when we make sexuality important in our marriage, this glue holds us together over and over and over again. And the longer we've been married, the more we have to prioritize it. It's so important that we spend time together and we are intimate with each other regularly. I'm a bit nervous to throw out how many times we should be doing this. But for us, it's weekly. This should be a weekly thing that we do. drawing time, making time for each other, not giving each other our leftovers, but really investing in this part of our marriage, because this is what God gave marriage for. This is one of the really seriously lovely perks of it.
And just to carry on like that, I mean, one of the things we've done over the years, and this is, I got to be careful how I word this, but we call it doing it for the country. So,
I didn't know we were talking about this.
so, so just going down this, and why we did this is we've known that this is an incredibly important part of our marriage, and we've wanted to guard ourselves in this, for Lindsay to guard me, and for me to guard Lindsay. And so what we've done is, I mean, life gets busy, kids happen, all those sort of things. We got it, well, we had it in our minds, changed, I think, as we've got a bit older. But I think in the earlier days, we had in our minds like every 3 days, if we hadn't been intimate, then we would do it for the country. So, and part of that was just really us constantly being aware of our sexuality and keeping that fresh in our lives. But we're going to speak a lot more about this later. We do have a challenge for you. And we usually start every single marriage course off with this, but I'll let Lindsay explain it because she's blushing now.
Yes, we do have a challenge, and at every marriage course we start with this challenge, and it's called the 10-day challenge. And yes, that's exactly what it means. It means being intimate and making an effort in lovemaking, not just doing an act, but really making an effort around being physically and emotionally involved with each other for 10 days in a row. It's hard. It's hard to do. We've tried a few times. Life can become a distraction, but we have found that if you are in a rut in this area, if you can kickstart it with a challenge like this and say, okay, for 10 days, and if you skip a day and start the next day, and that's okay, we will have some grace for you. But if you can kick it off and really put some time and effort into it, it can really start to get that connection and intimacy back again. So we'd like to throw that out to you. If you are up for it, the 10-day challenge is on the ball. Normally in our home we have a bell. And once you've done the 10-day challenge, when you come to the marriage course the next week, you get to ding-a-ling-a-ling that bell and boast that you have done the 10-day challenge. But yes, it sounds funny, but actually we found it is such a great way to kick off and get that intimacy into the place that it should be, for it to become a priority again. And now is the perfect time. There's lots of time for this at the moment. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, so we obviously don't have a bell, so you can hit the little bell icon on the screen or a little bell emoji if you're brave enough, and then just to throw it out there. But then the fourth thing that we want to talk about today is around family. So the purpose of marriage, just to recap again, friendship being number one, gardening being number two, our sexuality being number three, and then family being number four. And what I really love about this is the first commandment that God gives to man is a positive commandment. It's not a negative commandment, do not, but it is now be fruitful and multiply. So go and multiply the earth. Go and make babies. What a cool God. And so a big part of joining in union is to create family. And I understand that there are people that cannot have kids for medical reasons, but there are other ways to express this. Just recently, yeah, all your kids have grown up, but you have family both ways. You have a father, you have a mother, and a real important part about marriage is these interconnected relationships. Good example, obviously, we just had a couple that had come down to South Africa from Canada, and they were adopting a little baby. So they could have children, but they were still choosing to adopt a baby. They're a Christian couple, and it just felt in their hearts to help another child. We ourselves, there's a young guy that we are involved with. Where I was taking him home from youth one night, and he was just asking me questions about like, what do you do if you have feelings of suicide? And I remember just being so heartbroken at the time because his home situation was really, really bad. And just something inside of my heart, like, actually, I need to be a father to this young guy. And came home and I told Lindsay the story, and we both, that night, we just started like sobbing, and there was this like deep cry inside of our hearts. And ever since then, we really brought him into our family, and we've started treating him like one of our own kids. He doesn't live with us, but I've had all the big conversations. We constantly watching him, seeing what he's doing, and trying to be a mother and a father to him. So another big purpose, yeah.
Just wanted to add to there, if you have grown up children and your children are not in your home anymore, and you might be thinking, oh well, that part of the purpose of marriage is over for me. I think that there is a beautiful way to keep that family aspect of marriage going in taking on another young couple, or taking on somebody who maybe is not married yet, and showing them this is what it's like to be married, teaching them, showing them the way, so you can extend your family to others and bring them into different ways, and then also just to enjoy the fact that you're not running around after little kids anymore.
So this is all good. So those first points are really from before the fall, or Adam and Eve before they sinned and ate the fruits. So everything was perfect. They were in this ideal situation where they were to create family, have friendship together, garden, enjoy their sexuality without, yeah, being naked and unashamed. And then the fall happened. So this is where the fifth element really comes in, and it's called recreation. And there's this idea that goes around, that's been floating around for quite a while, that I'm looking for my better half, or I'm looking for that one person, and maybe you've heard, yeah, that will complete me. And what that lie does is, even we get into a marriage and it's like, oh, flip, this person isn't doing or being what I expected her to be. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe there is still someone out there that is going to complete me. And really, the analogy that I've seen being used is, so imagine a broken person because of the fall, and another broken person on this side coming together. So two halves don't make a whole, or two broken people don't make a whole. What they do is they make double the mess. So often, before we married, we think we're this, and we love ourselves, and we got all these gifts, and we're so good at this and that. And then we get into marriage, it's like, what the heck? Like, am I that bad? Like, is it her? Is it me? Like, what's going on here? She's telling me I'm not who I think I am. And that's what marriage does, is when we come together, it reveals the worst things that are inside of us. So if you are selfish before you get married, when you get into the context of marriage, that selfishness is highlighted on steroids. If you battle with pornography or masturbation before marriage, when you come into marriage, very often what happens is that problem still exists. So what you bring into the marriage doesn't disappear now because you've married someone. But what it does do is it really highlights those things. And we have a choice. Either we let those things become barriers or things that push us away, or we look at them and say, you know what, I'm going to start dealing with this stuff. So as we get married and the stuff gets revealed, we then look to deal with it. One of the fundamental things that also shifted my understanding, and this was a little bit more recent, was a phrase that we use often, and it's you before me. So coming into the marriage, and when we're talking about recreation, we look at the life of even Jesus. He put people and the people he loved before his own body, and he died and broke himself up on our behalf. And when we bring that lens into our marriage, it's my spouse before me. So what can I do that will help my spouse? What can I change inside myself that's going to help my spouse? So one of the big things in our marriage is the rubbish, taking out the rubbish on Mondays. It's like my worst thing. It's a thing I forget all the time, but it's a thing that drives Lindsay the craziest. And because that it can pile. If I miss it, then it really does pile. And what I've really tried on my side to say, okay, you know what? It's such an easy thing for me. It's an easy win that I can just make sure that I am being reminded, or giving her the freedom to say to me, hey, Sean, you need to do the rubbish, without getting upset that she's saying, hey, Sean, get the rubbish done. And if I can just do that, I'll change it inside of myself. I'm doing it not for me, but yes, it is for me, but it's for my wife, because I know it makes her happy. So I lay down that thing of procrastination or not doing it, or something else is more important. At that particular time, this is the most important thing. Why? Because it's for my wife. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, that was the biggest change that I saw in Sean after you read this book, was that all of a sudden he was focusing on me and rather than on himself. And so he often likes to call it the lens. So he put the Lindsay lenses on. And so whatever faced us in that day, instead of responding out of, oh, this isn't so nice for me, I'm feeling like this Lindsay is actually being mean to me, or she's grating on me, or she hasn't, he started to think, what can I do for Lindsay? How can I respond in this for Lindsay? And took the eyes off himself completely. And that's actually literally stopped me in my tracks. I was like, what on earth is going on? The effort to comment on something that I was wearing, or to tell me that he loved me, just the attention to detail on me was suddenly so difficult to miss. And that's something that we have found as being so fundamental in the shift in our marriage, is taking off the lenses of me, myself, and I, and putting the lens on my spouse. What can I do for my spouse today? How can I build up my spouse today? Instead of always focusing on the things that your spouse is not doing, or the things that irritate you about them. And the benefit of you both doing it is that while I'm doing it for Sean, it makes it easier for him to do it for me. So you ladies, you all know it's very easy to fall madly in love with your husband again when you come out and he goes, wow, you look absolutely ravishing today. That's how it works. The more we focus on the other person, if we do it together as a team, the easier it becomes for our spouse to do it for us and for us to do it for them. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think what Lindsay's talking about here, which I think is a great flaw often in our marriages, we rate the wrong person. So what happens is we come into the marriage and it's like, you know what, Lindsay's not being a friend to me, or Lindsay's not, helping me sexually the way I want, and that's so I start rating Lindsay instead of bringing it to myself and asking these questions. So if we bring those first four, it's like, actually, how am I being a friend to Lindsay? Am I being successful at it? Am I being the person that she wants to be a friend with, or not? And if not, then I go back to myself and I say, how can I change that thing inside of me? In terms of calling, like, how am I helping my wife with her dreams and her desires and her passions and what she feels God has called her to? And if I'm doing that constantly, how can I help her? How can I lay myself down to help her in that thing? How am I being as a sexual partner to my wife? Not about her and me. Am I satisfying her? Am I being the man that she wants me to be?
Just on that rating yourself, or putting the lens of your spouse in the sexuality context, is often it can be like, well, am I the one who's always initiating lovemaking, or am I always the one who's initiating words of affirmation, or whatever it is that fills your tank? But rather, how can I do this for my spouse? And I want to throw out a bit of a challenge and say, try that for a day or two. For 2 days, over the next 21-day lockdown, or I don't know how many days we've got left now, decide, let's test this. And in everything that you do, actively go about changing your mindset, changing your lens. So when you go outside, ladies, and you see that the rubbish didn't get taken out, instead of freaking out and saying, you never take the rubbish out, I've asked you 100 times, you never listen. Okay, why don't I take the rubbish out? No, I'm only joking. Don't take the rubbish out. Maybe we can just think about how we can ask and remind our spouse in a good way, or maybe just let it go for today and bring it up again next week. But for 2 days, try it out. Try and take the lens off of yourself and put your lens on your spouse in every little aspect that comes up. And while we're rubbing shoulders 24/7, there's going to be some stuff. And when it comes up and your spouse irritates you, think about what it is that you might be doing that could be aggravating or causing that issue as well. And lots of compliments, men. Lots of compliments to your wife for 2 days.
Yeah, I love this thing of you before me, and it's really the basis of how we want you guys to start thinking about your marriage. So we're getting out of that selfish idea that we got brought into marriage. So like, I'm getting married because I want to be happy, or I'm getting married to that person because they make me happy. So it's a very inward, me orientated view of marriage, where we're saying, I'm getting in this marriage, and how am I going to make this person feel better or help them in whatever way they do? One of the things I was just thinking recently between us, and there's two different ways. Like, the one thing I really battle with and have for my whole life is really communicating how I feel. So often I feel certain ways and I just keep quiet about it. I bottle up. Lindsay wants to talk to me, and the more she wants to talk to me, the more I want to get. We call it either my turtle shell or I build my wall. I'm very good. I'm like a professional wall builder. So as soon as she wants to get into that emotional stuff, it's like I can't deal with it. And I think there are many guys like that. And we start building our walls, building our walls, building our walls. So recently, Lindsay and her evil cousin, Misha, who's probably in on this, asked me the question to do this, and we're actually going to do this communication with you guys a little bit later in the course, which we learned. We could take an aspects from that, but she asked me to go, and I was just like, oh no, this is like the worst thing possible for me, and I was starting to build my wall to their place. It was Lindsay and I. We're going to go and sit with Peter and Misha at their house, and we were going to do this communication and this technique of communicating. And I knew that this is going to get deep. So I was like, oh no, let me start building my wall. And I sort of ignored it. And then Misha is great at asking the question again and again. She kept asking. And then eventually I just thought, you know what? I need to do this because that's part of me changing who I am. I know that when I build my walls up, Lindsay starts to feel like I don't care. I don't care enough to actually chat about some of these things. So I decided at that point, like, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go with her. And when I'm there, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to give it out. And it was really difficult at the time, but it was so helpful for us in our marriage. And that's part of me saying, you know what? I need to put Lindsay before me. Even though I'm feeling vulnerable and I'm feeling like this is really hard, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Misha and Peter aren't so evil after all. They're actually amazing. So thanks for that. But we are going to go into communication a bit in the next few sessions that we have. I think we're nearly done though, but let's just recap on those. We've got friendship, gardening or purpose or mission. What are we going after? Sexuality, marriage is for us to enjoy sexuality and intimacy together. Family, the purpose of marriage is to have a family and to enjoy being a community of people together. And then the last one was recreation, that we need to become better people. Something that I love, a saying that I love is that saying of iron sharpens iron. And that is something to remember in marriage, that iron sharpens iron. As we irritate each other, as we rub against each other, it's so that we can become better people. If you start to see it with that lens as well, it's a bit easier to take it. When you are having a hard time in marriage, just keep thinking, okay, I'm going to be better after this. I'm going to come out a better person because of it.
So while I make my last comment, if you've got any questions or comments, you're welcome to post them, and then I'll just say what I was going to say. So often when you chat to people that are generally in their second marriage, what often happens is that they come up with exactly the same issues. So it's a different person, but same issue. And very often what that relates to is actually the issues that we have inside of ourselves that we need to deal with. And so part of this course as well is like, can we be a people, and part of recreation is, can we be a people that are able to work with our own stuff? Yes. That I'm not rating Lindsay and I'm not judging her and making her we are where we are today because of you. No, actually we are where we are today because of me. Yes. And my inability to change who I am as a person. And I know it does take two to tango, and it's a massive generalization here, but the crux of what I'm saying is, can we put the lenses on of you before me? Cool.
So that's our challenge for the week as well. Well, not for the week, because we're going to meet again on Friday, same couch, 7 o'clock, and we're going to go into our next topic, and we're going to be talking about some habits that lead to marriage breakdown, some really practical ideas of things that we might be doing that we actually need to stop so that we can have a good marriage. So we'll be here on Friday, but while you are spending time with each other in the next day or two, think about these things. How's our friendship? What can we do to make it better? How's our purpose? What are we going to go after? If you don't have anything you're going after together, what can we do together? How can we bring our friendship circles together? Everything is building towards each other. Is there areas in our intimate relationship that we need to work on? Let's get on to that 10-day challenge. And then obviously spending time with our families at the moment is a lot. Enjoy your children. And then how can I change? What do I need to change? Ask yourself, what do I need to change? We've got a few little notes we'd like to send out to you on email, which will help with this. So, like I said, if we don't have your email, please let us know and we'll send those out tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think while we're under lockdown, especially those with kiddies, you're welcome to ask questions, guys, and throw out some stuff. Um, One of the things Lindsay did, which I thought was really amazing, is she created a little tuck shop. So cleaning around the house, obviously a big thing. And as they do stuff, they earn money. But the real question around it was really, how can I, over this time, be a better father to my kids? So what are some of the things I've neglected with my kids in the busy life that I lived that I can pay attention to now and also implement some things in my life where I can be a better father to my son, to my daughters over this time.